Welcome back to Goodnight Lighthouse. I'm Miss Dorothy, and I'm here to read you another story. And I'm here to read you a fun book about Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is coming up, and we need to find out whether the groundhog sees his shadow or not. But tonight, there's a problem, because the groundhog is sick. This book is called Substitute Groundhog. Substitute Groundhog. Groundhog wakes up sick, and he has to find somebody to take his place so people won't be disappointed on Groundhog Day. Somebody has to come out of that hole and see whether or not they see a shadow, because that's how we find out. Is there going to be more winter? Is it going to be an early spring? We need the groundhog. So what do we do if he gets sick? Well, we're going to have to get into this book and find out what's making the groundhog sick. Are you ready to get inside this book with Miss Dorothy? Good. I need you to sit up and listen up, because here we go. Substitute Groundhog, written by Pat Miller, illustrated by Kathy Ember. The day before Groundhog Day, Groundhog woke up sick. His muscles ached and his throat hurt. Oh no, it's only one more day to Groundhog Day, and Groundhog doesn't feel well. Groundhog felt so awful he went to see Dr. Owl. "You have a bad case of the flu, you do," said Dr. Owl. "You need hot clover soup and bed rest for 2 days." "How many?" asked Groundhog. Two, hooted Dr. Owl. But the Groundhog Day was tomorrow. Groundhog couldn't let everyone down because he was too sick to do his job. He tried to think of something. Oh no, what's he going to do? On his way home to bed, Groundhog passed the Hidey Hole Diner. He saw want ads from all the neighborhood animals tacked to a nearby tree. Skunk was looking for a roommate again. Mr. and Mrs. Duck were returning north and had their nest for rent. "I know what I'll do," Groundhog thought. "I'll advertise for a substitute groundhog." He's going to put up a sign asking somebody else to be the groundhog. By 10 o'clock, a line of animals waited to try out. "Great," said Groundhog with a sneeze. "Achoo! Surely one of you can do Groundhog Day for me." Mole was first. "You have to go down in my hole," Groundhog told Mole. "It's pretty dark down there." "No problem," said Mole. "My own hole is even darker." Mole got comfortable underground. "Now come up and look for your shadow," Groundhog shouted. Mole peeked over the edge. His little eyes squinted. "Well, Mole, what do you see?" Mole spoke to a tree. "Is that you, Groundhog?" Groundhog blew his nose. "This won't work. I need someone who sees well." Moles don't see very well, so he couldn't be the groundhog. "I can see well," said a voice from high overhead. Groundhog looked up and saw Eagle. Eagle swooped down. "From the mountain ledge, Groundhog, I could see a bit of owl feather stuck in your fur. I'd say you have been to Dr. Owl recently." "Wow! Then surely you have no trouble seeing your shadow," said Groundhog. "Climb down in the hole and let's practice." "Climb down?" said Eagle. He looked at the entrance to the hole. "Will there be room down there to stretch my wings?" He stretched them very, very wide. Groundhog rubbed his scratchy throat. "This won't work. I need someone who sees well and is not bothered by small spaces." Eagle couldn't be the groundhog because he couldn't go down in the hole. Bear stepped up next. "My own cave is snug and cozy." "Great," said Groundhog. "Climb down and let's practice." "This is perfect," yelled Bear from the hole. "It's even more comfy than my own cave." "Come out and take a look," called Groundhog. There was no answer. Groundhog poked his head below ground. "Bear, come look for your shadow." The only answer was a deep, slow snore. The bear fell asleep. Groundhog was frustrated. He needed a substitute who could see well, wasn't bothered by small spaces, and wouldn't fall asleep. I can do it, let me try." Squirrel bounced to the front of the line. "Okay," said Groundhog. Go down in the hole, come back up, and look for your shadow. Squirrel leaped in. Whee! Then she popped her head back up. Groundhog said, see your shadow? Ow, I forgot to look. Down she went. She popped back up. She dropped back down. I keep forgetting to look, Squirrel giggled. She popped up and down some more. This is fun, she said. But what Groundhog needed was someone who would pop up and stay up. Squirrel was having too much fun jumping in and out of the hole that he never looked for his shadow. By now, Groundhog was feeling even worse. He thought of his warm bed. Was he ever going to find a substitute? Howdy there, Groundhog. How about giving me a chance? Up stepped a strange-looking creature. My name is Armadillo, she said. You're not from around here, are you? Asked Groundhog. Nope, I'm from Texas, visiting my cousin Badger, she said. But I can do this job. I live in a hole. I like soft spaces. I see my shadow just fine, and I will pop up and stay up. The armadillo sounds like she can do the job. Groundhog wasn't so sure. Armadillo was a stranger from far away. What did she know about the weather here? But she did have all the qualifications for the job. All right, said Groundhog. Let's see how you do. Armadillo climbed down into Groundhog's hole. She poked her head up and looked around. Sure enough, she saw her shadow. If that happens tomorrow, tell folks that winter will drag on, said Groundhog. But if you don't see your shadow tomorrow, spring will come early. Got it, said Armadillo. Looks like Armadillo got the job. I think you're just the substitute I've been looking for, said Groundhog. You're hired. Thanks, said Armadillo. They shook paws. Then Groundhog climbed down his hole into bed. He sipped warm clover soup. He plumped his pillows and tucked his sore self under the flannel quilt. Finally, he gets to go to bed. That's where he needs to go so he can feel better. The next morning, the animals gathered early to hear what Armadillo would say. It was cold and crisp as the sun peeked over the forest. Badger served hot chocolate. Squirrel bounced and cheered for Armadillo. Eagle flew high above the trees. Muddy Mole looked sleepy, and Bear was still in bed. The animals grew quiet as Armadillo poked her head up and carefully looked around. There on the ground, she saw the shadow of her tiny ears and pointy nose. 6 more weeks of winter, she announced. Armadillo dropped back into Groundhog's hole. Did you hear that, Groundhog? 6 more weeks of winter, Groundhog groaned from his bed. How you feeling, Groundhog? Armadillo asked. A little better, but I'd feel a lot better if it was spring already, Groundhog said. Spring already, said Armadillo. Say, that gives me an idea. Armadillo found Groundhog's suitcase. Get your gear together, Groundhog, she said. It's already spring in Texas. You can come home with me. Really? Said Groundhog. He imagined himself rolling in warm grass instead of sneezing through 6 more weeks of cold. You bet, said Armadillo. Groundhog jumped from his bed. He grabbed his teddy bear and his toothbrush and tossed them into his suitcase. I've always wanted to see Texas. Do you think they have cowboy hats in my size? Asked Groundhog. Sure as Texas has a Lone Star, said Armadillo. Together they walked through the cold to the bus station, and their shadows followed them all the way there. That was a fun book. Groundhog Day went off just fine because Groundhog found himself a substitute. Armadillo came up from Texas and was ready to do the job. It was funny when the other animals tried. The bear couldn't do it because the bear just wanted to sleep. But the armadillo knew just what to do, jumped down that hole, came back up, saw his shadow, which meant more winter, and then took Groundhog on a vacation someplace warm. They went to Texas. Texas is very warm this time of year. My mom lives in Texas, and I think if I want to be warm, I'll go to Texas too, just like Groundhog. This was a fun book. I'm so glad Groundhog found somebody to do his job, because we need somebody to come out of that hole on February 2nd so that we know whether it's going to be more winter or if we're going to have an early spring. I kind of hope he doesn't see his shadow, because I want an early spring. What do you want? Well, whatever happens, that's up to God. God controls the weather, not you and me. So whether it's winter or spring or summer or fall, I'm just thankful for it all. And I'm also thankful that you came to read this story with me tonight. But just like the sleepy little bear, I need you to climb into your bed and get ready for a good night's sleep. Get cuddled up, curled up, tucked in. Give Mom and Dad lots of hugs and kisses. And tomorrow, when you're jumping around like the squirrel, obey and obey right away. And come back and see Miss Dorothy. I'm going to be sitting right here tomorrow, ready to read a book to you. Bye! Thanks for reading with Miss Dorothy. I hope you enjoyed this book, and I hope you'll come back soon to read another. What's your favorite book? Drop Miss Dorothy a note and let me know. I'll go find it, and I'll read it to you. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share. I'll see you soon.